and they said to me, will you follow us up to the house? And I said, well, what, is there something wrong? And the guard said, your wife is after being on. Apparently she was talking to me today walking her by Juba. Now I said, I live on a small road. I said, my son is only a baby. I said, if you're something to say, can you please speak to me here on the side of the road? And the guard said, no. I said, look, I've done nothing wrong. And this really has to stop. Like, what do I do? And the guard told me to produce my tax and insurance. I went home and got my insurance. I drove straight to the guard station and I made an appointment to see the superintendent. And he told me about Amen. I never heard of him. I didn't know. As far as I was concerned, I was the only man in the world that was going through this. But I wasn't, and I'm not.
And just before you talk about your links with Amen, or the decision to make contact with Amen, had you made a conscious decision, you know, this terrible, terrible ethos almost that exists in Ireland, where you've made your bed and you're now going to have to sleep in it, and this is the way it's going to be, and you're just going to have to put up with it, even though you're suffering terribly?
But if I was a woman, I didn't have to live that life, because although it was an ultimate decision to actually leave your home with your children to bring them to safety, I hadn't got that. I had nowhere to go.
So what did you do? You made contact with Amen?
I made contact with Amen, which was a very strange experience, to be honest with you, because after finding myself with the guards coming to my home and them not believing it, why should these people believe me? They don't know who I am.
Yeah.
But when I started telling them my story, this was nothing that they hadn't heard before. So they were the first people that I ever spoke with that straight away believed you. And the burden that's sitting on their shoulders. Like, I in my opinion, now I can only talk about my own experience. I feel that women find it easier to speak about things. They pick up the phone, they ring their friend, they ring their sister. I don't go down to the pub with my next door neighbour and say, you won't believe the listeners to me last night. We don't do that.
No, you're right.
But it doesn't say that it's not happening. It's just saying that we don't speak about it. We don't know how to express ourselves. We don't know how to say what's actually going on. And as I said, I'm 6'1", I'm 18 stone, I'm not a little shy, little weakling person. And when the guards come in and their attitude to me was sit down, you're a bully, who else was going to believe me?
But you decided to reach out. You went to Amen. Here we are now in the year 2015. So where are you now in your life? I obviously, you're out of the relationship. Are you out of the family home?
No. Isn't it funny that you say that? Because that's the usual, that's the run of it. When someone stands up, when a man stands up, the run of events normally is he's asked to leave the home. Even though he's a victim, he's asked to leave the family home. I'm one in the minority that actually said, you know what, I'm not leaving my home. Now, I lost my wife. I lost my children, because my wife turned around, as I said.
No, I don't want you to go down there. So you've lost your children. Go on.
I put it this way: the only thing I have left out of that is my home.
Right. So listening to you, and again, I don't want you to think I'm preventing you from, making your point or getting your full story across, but I just want to, be very clear with our listeners as to how this form of violence manifests itself and how helpless the victims can be. In this case, the victims are men. But there is help at hand, and the fact that you reached out, and listening to you now, I sense that despite all that has happened, you're in a good place. And your message...
But Joe, I'm not in a good place. Like, when you're... Like, it's very sad that when radio stations or whoever it is speaking about domestic violence, it's an awful pity that it's a man's story or it's a woman's story. I stayed in that situation for my children, as do if a woman finds herself in it. Unfortunately, that a lot of the time she will say the same thing.
Yeah.
There's no difference in domestic violence. It's just wrong, and it's very wrong that it's a man or a woman's story. Domestic violence, and it's an awful pity. For instance, Amen, they receive €150,000 a year to run Amen. Women say they get €11 million a year. Like that's disgraceful.
It is.
You know what
It
I mean?
is.
So
When I
some
read
people
that last night, I said to myself, it is disgraceful. And I'm also satisfied that in some cases, the violence, and it is violence that is perpetrated by women against men, can be extremely severe and just as violent as what women are subjected to by men. Now, I know people this morning will find that hard to believe, and they will say, oh, well, you know, he's well able to fight back. But, you know, the decent, ordinary person will not want to meet violence with violence.
But if I fight back, Joe, and if I was to hit her, that makes me as bad as her.
Here.
I'm not like that.
That is not the answer. But
no, it's not
you
the
see,
answer.
This stereotype exists, and I know that's why, again, I had to preface this interview this morning by saying, yes, we recognize, and I'm not trying to trivialize it in any way, that there's a lot of violence towards women, but it's a fact of life. Women also, in some relationships, violently abuse men. Fact. And to think that in this country there's only €150,000 worth of funding from the state for Amen, which is there to help and assist men who have been subjected to domestic violence. The figure for the other agencies that are there doing great work for women who are abused is 11 million. Huge difference, and that needs to be addressed. But look, I'm almost out of time. But Joe, I suppose your message is to people listening this morning, help is at hand, reach out, and it's not necessarily your fault. That's your clear message.
No, it's not your fault at all. And like, the more men, and it is very hard, and like I know exactly, I really know how hard it is to speak out. But I think the more men that do speak out, and the more people that actually hear that this is going on, like, we're in an age now that with gay marriage, with two men getting married and two women getting married, what happens in that situation is with domestic violence? If it's the man that's not that's not looked upon as the perpetrator, how are we going to stand in this day and age? Like, it's wrong. Domestic violence is wrong against the man, against the woman. It's just domestic violence is wrong. And we all, like, in my life and the life of my children, is that not as important as my abuser?
Of course it is. Look, the message from Amen on their website last night, and again this morning when I was reading through it, break your silence, guys. Domestic abuse, there's no shame at all in being a male victim. Get pen and paper ready. I'm going to give you a number, a confidential helpline number, and if you want to log on to the Amen website, it's amen.ie. Look, Joe, thanks a million for talking to us. I'm just looking at the screen here. Well done to that man. My son had a similar problem. I wish him luck. And another texter, Joe, I went through the very same thing. I want to congratulate that man for speaking out this morning. Good man, Joe, and best wishes to you and your family.
Thanks very much, I appreciate that.
Good morning to you. I'll give you that number before the end of the show for Amen. But if you want to find out more about the work that Amen are involved in, just go to amen.ie.